A fighter and you want to write your own books and write your own stories, I suggest the place for you to start is by getting your education right. And this morning, here to chat with us about how you can do that, I want to welcome Dr. Amy Deacon. She's a lecturer in zoology at the Department of Life Sciences at the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine. Good morning, Dr. Deacon.
Hi, good morning, Rockus. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you're a lecturer in UWI's Department of Life Sciences, right? First of all, what is life sciences and what courses do you guys offer?
Yeah, life sciences is a funny name that you might not be familiar with from school, but everybody knows biology, right? So life sciences really is biology, but it also includes biochemistry. In our department, we look at life on Earth from the molecules in biochemistry to the species for biology, and then all the way up to kind of the environment and how nature and people interact, kind of environment and ecology as well. So all of that comes under the umbrella of life sciences, and you can study any of those subjects, including in our department.
What kind of careers or jobs do you get when you finish? Like, I mean, obviously some sort of scientist.
Yeah, many of our students will graduate and become scientists working in labs or becoming researchers. They might be advisors within the ministries. Some of them go on to work for places like the Institute for Marine Affairs or the Environmental Management Authority. But many of them go and do a whole variety of different things. Once you've been trained in a science, then you have an amazing skill set that is very valuable to employers in general. Some of our students go off to be marine biologists or work in forensics and other exciting things like that as well. And you can actually download an app if you're interested. There's a BUE app, which you can find on our website, the UWI STA website. And that has a whole list of careers depending on the topics that you choose to study.
Ah, fantastic. All right. Now, I understand that much of your research focuses on biodiversity. What is biodiversity?
Yeah, that's right. Well, biodiversity, again, is a broad term, but it really means all of that diversity of life on Earth. So why do we see so many different species, and, how do they interact with each other? And how can we sort of count them and value them? So my research concerns, actually, in particular, I'm interested in the biodiversity of rivers and streams in the Northern Range, and looking at, which species of fish and other crustaceans and things that we get in those rivers, and how it's affected by humans as well. But of course, we can't really separate humans from biodiversity, which is why it's so important, because we really rely on it for much of our well-being.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned rivers and streams and stuff like that, because like for me growing up in the Northern Range, one of the types of fish we would always see in the rivers is like a guppy. You know what a guppy is, right?
Of course, yes.
Right. So are those like supposed to be something important in the system, in the ecosystem?
Yes, I mean, to be honest, I could talk to you about guppies for about a week. They're so important, and we tend to just disregard them because they're so abundant. We see them everywhere in the ditches, in the rivers, but really, they're a really important little fish for several reasons. Firstly, yes, they do play an important role in the ecosystem. There are so many of them that they can actually change the sort of nutrient cycles and the other things that go on in that ecosystem. And of course, they're prey, they're food to the larger fish as well. But the reason that I'm really interested in them is that they have taught us so much about biology. So people have used the Trinidadian guppy, and I literally mean they've taken guppies from Trinidad. They've taken them to labs across the whole world, or they visited here in Trinidad to study them. And they've made amazing discoveries that have then been sort of changing the whole way we see science. Like so what? I think sometimes we need to look at that guppy in the drain and think, wow, you need to deserve a bit more credit than just being a dirty old canal fish.
Well, tell me what are some of the important changes that the guppy has made?
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things I study is invasive species. And the guppy is native here in Trinidad, but it's actually been taken outside of Trinidad and used as a mosquito control agent in places like Africa and India, where malaria is really a huge problem.
Hold on, just now. Wait, hold on. Oh. Guppies eat mosquitoes?
They eat the larvae, but because the mosquito larvae is aquatic and lives in the ponds and ditches. So they actually really enjoy eating. That's one of their favorite foods once it's available. Yeah.
Wow.
So in Trinidad, if you have a pond in your garden or even a little, fish tank or pool, then just add a guppy if you're worried about mosquitoes breeding, for sure. But it's not quite as simple when you move outside of Trinidad, because then the guppy is a non-native species, and it could, in theory, interact with the native species in those other countries and have problems. So it's kind of a balance of whether The guppy is doing more harm than good in some countries, and there's a lot more research that needs to be done to really be sure about that. But there's certainly potential there, and it's very interesting to study the guppy, because we know a lot about guppies because people have studied them in Trinidad, and kind of get to the bottom of what makes an invasive species so good at establishing in a new place, and all of those kind of questions. Yeah,
this is very, very exciting. And for anybody else on the outside who's excited about, learning about this zoology and biodiversity and guppy research and all of this stuff, how can they apply to be a part of this exciting area of study?
Well, I would say, first of all, go to the UWI St. Augustine website. So that's www.sta.ue.edu/apply. And all the information you need is there. The deadline for this year's applications is the 10th of July. So you have some time there if you're interested. If you enjoy science at school, I really want to make sure that any students out there who are enjoying studying science at secondary school realize there are more options than simply medicine and engineering. Science is much broader than that. And in life science, we have a whole range of exciting programs that you can pursue if you're good at science, or if you enjoy science. So there's marine biology, there's microbiology, biotechnology. In fact, some of our students and graduates are currently in labs testing COVID samples using genetic technology that those skills that they've acquired during our programs, and they're putting it to amazing use now. And we're so proud of those students for kind of being able to use that knowledge and make a difference.
I would imagine that, a part of what they would be able to do is things like work on vaccines as well, and all of those intricate details, and make drugs, I guess. Do they also go into pharmaceuticals? Can you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the lab skills that you need. A lot of our students go off to work in labs, or even become lab managers, or establish their own labs. And they have all of those skills. If they've chosen those options in their final year, they could be well equipped for that. And science has never been so important, like you say, with COVID and vaccination, and even thinking back to how COVID originated, and the link between nature and what the wildlife trafficking that they believe might have been, at the core of that. So biology has never been more important, and there are so many diverse careers that you can pursue once you have a degree in a biological subject.
So, Dr. Deacon, tell me something. This is a bit bacchanalish, right? Forgive me. But you spoke about COVID just now, and I'm just kind of curious as to if it is that there's been that biodiverse research into the cause of the initial stages of it.
Yeah, there has been some. They've looked at the host organisms that may have sort of passed it over to humans, inadvertently. And they believe that a lot of that is down to humans keeping wild animals in poor conditions and in close proximity to human populations when they're trafficking or selling in markets these very wild animals. So that's part of the problem. Another interesting field that's just emerging now, because we're a year later from the beginning of the pandemic, is how the lockdown has started to potentially affected biodiversity as well. And that's another area of research that's really interesting, because it turns out it's a really mixed story. And in some ways, biodiversity has benefited in some places by fewer people and less pollution. But in other cases, it means lack of enforcement for regulations for poaching, and other sort of inadvertent effects that you might not have imagined have actually made it worse for some species. So that's something that's really interesting to look more into as a biologist.
Definitely. Well, if you are interested in this and biology and all of that cool stuff, you can go check them out at the Department of Life Sciences up there at the University of the West Indies. Go check them out online as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Amy Deacon, for joining us this morning. Dr. Deacon is a lecturer in zoology at the Department of Life Sciences. So I encourage you guys to go and enroll if you're interested in sciences. Dr. Deacon, thank you so much. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.